Welcome to Why Is It So Hard for Him to Learn and Keep Up with His Peers. I'm Tanya Mitchell, LearningRx Chief Research and Development Officer, and I'm the host today for the webinar. And then with me, I have my dad, Dr. Ken Gibson. He's the founder of LearningRx. Very special guest today. Real excited to have him join us for this webinar. And then later on, we'll be introducing you to Terry Miller, who is a cognitive researcher at our Gibson Institute. Right. And a parent of one of our students. So not only is he the founder of LearningRx, but he's also the creator of the Gibson Test, which we're going to talk about both today. And to start, I wanted to give you just an idea of my own experience with LearningRx as a parent. So I'm actually the mom of 4 kids. You can see them here. And even though we've never met, if you are a parent, I bet that we have some things in common. I talk to parents every single day about their kids and the struggles of being a parent. And I know that when I first became a parent, which was one of the happiest days of my life, I had many hopes and dreams. You know, I love being a mom so much, and I just wanted my kids to have a great life, and follow their dreams. As co-author of Unlock the Einstein Inside, applying new brain science to wake up the smart in your child, I never really thought that I would have to deal with learning or reading struggles or ADHD with my own kids. Somehow, I thought because I didn't struggle as a kid, that my kids wouldn't struggle either, but I was wrong. And so I've had teacher conferences that I dreaded going to, years of homework struggles, and kids that would do anything to avoid completing missing assignments. And as you can see here, a picture of my beautiful family that was taken several years ago, so they've gotten bigger. Yes. Within this small group of individuals, I have ADHD, motivation problems, reading struggles, concussions, and brain injury. So it's got a collection. I have a collection, and the good news for me was that I had come with years of expertise, in part working with my dad for over 20 years now, on how to help people struggle with learning. And so I was able to take action right away and really help my family get onto a path of success, which I'm going to share with you a little bit later. But I want to help you guys learn about the path that I took to help my own kids with their struggles, so that you have your own tools, and not only kids, but even family members really get the help that they need. And so let me start by sharing 3 different scenarios that I had with my own family, the same issues and concerns that we hear from parents every single day. Right. So let me just show you a couple more pictures of my family. Enjoy. And this is taken, there's Christmas, there's a school starting here. You don't got the grandparents in any of those pictures. Well, that's coming up. That's your picture, that's next. Okay. So within this group of people here is one of my sons who is very impulsive, and what that caused him to do is get in a lot of trouble. I can't even tell you how many bad teacher conferences that I've been to. And at one point, I actually just stopped going. He avoided learning. He couldn't get, he wouldn't sit still in a chair for more than a couple of minutes. So homework time was a complete disaster and struggle almost every single night. Yeah. Yet, if I got him a new video game or if we were watching a movie, he could focus, right? And that's something that I've heard from a lot of different parents. So I knew he could focus if he was interested enough. And like I said, I've heard this from a lot of different parents. Whoops, let me go back to my... You know, one of the reasons kids can focus on video games is so much activity and so much action going on. Whereas looking at a book or doing math, it's not so exciting. Well, it's not, but it's needed. You know, it's needed. All of us want our kids to do well in school. So that was one of my kids. I accidentally clicked through to another slide. So, you know, I wanted to understand why his impulsivity or what was going on with him, how I could help him. And then I have another son who had reading struggles. And he was tested. He tested really low on his school reading test, and so in first grade. So we put him in the school reading program because he needed extra help. 2 years later, he tested lower on the same school test, and we realized it wasn't extra reading help that he needed. There was something else going on.
Right.
And then my oldest daughter, she's always been sort of the star student, and she loves learning. She's an incredible singer, and generally she's just really excited to learn. Until last year, as a cheerleader, she had 2 concussions, and she was told to take a couple days off. And then at the end of the semester, for the first time ever, she had poor grades. And I knew it wasn't due to lack of motivation, you know, or trying. And so there was something off, and I wanted to find out if something had happened that, you know, might stay there, like an injury. So today, just like I wanted to find out answers for my own family, we're hoping to help you understand why your child or family member is struggling with learning and reading, and how you can get them the right help.
Right.
Okay, so now we're going to show you a picture of my dad. And this is actually your 50th wedding anniversary.
In Hawaii.
We're a pretty large family. He has 5 kids. I'm the third. And it's been great to work with him. And I'm real proud. My dad is the founder of the largest one-on-one brain training company in the world. We're in over 47 countries with our programs. And so let me just tell you a little bit about—
Even in Hawaii, you are.
Yeah, that's in Hawaii. We are in Hawaii.
Right.
But let me just tell you a little bit about our research and some of the things that we've done just in the last few years.
Right.
And so to talk a little bit about brain training, we first want to start with our focus, which are the 7 core cognitive skills that make up someone's ability to process or perform, right? And so these skills include attention, processing speed, working memory, logic and reasoning, auditory processing, visual processing, and long-term memory. And those are the skills that actually would make up someone's IQ.
Right. In fact, what was done, they collected tests from years and years and years and looked at what the different test measures, and they found out there's about 69 different mental skills, but they could get grouped into 7 different areas because they're related, and that's what those 7 tests are. So the test that we use and the test we develop probes all 7 of those different cognitive areas, so we get a really good reading of that person's mental capabilities.
Yes, and these 7 core cognitive skills are based on, just like he said, the Carol Horn-Cattell model of intelligence.
Right.
That is the major model of intelligence known throughout the world, and most IQ testing or cognitive testing will be focused on that model.
Right.
Excuse me. So the training that we're talking about always includes a one-on-one training aspect. And after looking at tons of research, if you've ever looked at different research on brain training, we know that effective brain training requires one-on-one brain training. So all of our training has that component. And the good news is that our clients span from 4-year-olds up to 94-year-olds. Actually, in our last peer-reviewed article, our oldest client was 95.
Okay.
So let me just show you what that looks like for this age span, right? Because a lot of times we're told, oh, when you hit 17, your brain is formed, right? You can't do anything. But look at these results. These are IQ tests. So pre and post scores, before and after this type of training, one-on-one training. And you can see here, the 4-year-old had 4-year-olds averaged a 12-point gain in IQ, and IQ would be 6 of those tests. It's like a composite score all together. It's a very robust score, right? But look who had the largest improvements in their IQ score. It was the 60 to 69-year-olds.
Right.
And then up next, the 70-plus-year-olds. And that's really encouraging because it doesn't matter what age you are.
Right. But
you can improve your brain.
There's big Big room for improvement.
Right, and of course, our seniors are coming to us because they have complaints of memory loss or problems with focus at that age. Mm-hmm. So that's a really big change for them.
Right.
Let me share some of our new research just out in the last couple weeks. And this is looking at how this program works with children. And so these are age equivalents, and sometimes it's hard to understand the standard scores, percentiles needed for research. Mm-hmm. But this is age equivalent. So these would be kids under 17, and the type of changes that they got age-wise. So, and this is on 8,605 children that we worked with. So you can see they averaged about a 4-year gain in long-term memory and visual processing pre and post, about a 5-year gain. That's pretty impressive.
That's pretty impressive. You got a third grader that's functioning on maybe a second grade level, and you can move up maybe the 5th, 6th grade level.
And what's great about it is all of the test results show improvement, right? So every single skill area has improvement. And you're going to find that in all the research. So there's not a skill that you can't train mm-hmm. and change. Here are reading scores. And so we work a lot with kids that have reading struggles. We take a very different approach. We're going to take a cognitive approach to reading. Right. But once they have the skills that they need to read well, then we offer a reading program. And you can see here,
big changes.
Big changes. Our average age client in this group was 10.6. Mm-hmm. And that spans 10 to 14 years old, depending upon the year. But that's a lot of times the age when people say, oh, you must accommodate or compensate now because they're a problem reader. And that's when we get our students.
It's almost a 3 to 6 year improvement, depending upon what skill.
By the way, this is on 9,250 clients that we worked with. Mm-hmm. And then some of the neat research that we've been doing in the last couple years. So when we look at someone that has severe traumatic brain injury, mm-hmm. you can actually see a physical change happen in their brain. And what's really exciting about this is our first MRI study. You can see the pre-test, right? That mm-hmm. is a damaged brain. The post is a much more normal brain. The control group is on the right there. And so, this was in, I think, 72 hours of training. Look at the physical changes that happened in your brain. The brain changes. The mm-hmm. brain is trainable. Mm-hmm. You can change the brain. And let me share this. So at the end of training with us on exit surveys, we ask people on a scale of 1 to 10, how likely are you to refer your friends or family to LearningRx? Right. This is after they've spent with us maybe 100 hours. Mm-hmm. And we average a 9.6 out of 10. And we have maintained this client satisfaction rating
for years.
Mm-hmm. Over mm-hmm. 5 years since we've started asking when they leave. Mm-hmm. About their satisfaction. So that's something that we're really, really proud of.
That's good.
After training, we'll invite people back a year later. And so this study was based on retention rate a year after they were trained. And you can see in the last column there that there's very, very high retention. And that's really exciting because
a lot of people ask about that.
Yes.
Do these skills retain, and are they going to stay? Look at those numbers. 97% of those skills stayed, or 99%. That's fabulous.
Yes. And what that can mean, in my case, is I don't need reading tutors mm-hmm. because they retain those skills.
One of the reasons they're retained is the way we do training.
Yeah.
Rather than just other people do brain training, but we do it to such a point that the skills that we're working on become automatic, become they're theirs.
Yes.
And so they don't have to think about doing these skills, they just come out.
Yes.
They're automatic, they're part of what their skills are.
Right. So brain training works. We have a new research and results report and client outcomes report that we're happy to send anyone who's interested. It's on over 21,000 clients. So that's just a little bit about my father's work and what we've been doing over the last 20 years. just so you get an idea of where we're coming at. So let's go ahead and look at the 3 steps to end learning struggles. And the first one is, number 1, understand that the symptom is not the cause.
That is so big, so big. So many people try to solve symptoms, you know. You got to get to the cause if you really want to correct it. The child has a reading problem, so what you do is you see is the reading problem, that's the symptom, and you end up tutoring him. And yet most of the time, many times, that doesn't work because there's a reason he had the reading problem.
Yes.
A reason he has a spelling problem, a reason he has a math problem, a reason he has a comprehension problem. You got to get down to the reason, correct that, and guess what? The problems go away.
Yes, and I can't tell you how many parents I have talked with that have spent thousands of dollars just trying to find out what the cause is and not even having a real picture of what that is. So you can see the little icons here: time, money, and energy.
Yep.
And a lot of that was spent trying to find out how to treat the symptom versus the cause.
Right.
Even within my own situation with my kids, you know, I had poor self-esteem, academic problems, poor selection of friends, I mean, all of these consequences happened. And so if you look on top there, those are the different causes. So, you know, we're a military family. We have moved around. So when you change schools, sometimes there is lack of instruction, right? But it's almost never the reason why they're struggling. Or if your child has struggled year after year, in other words, you know, some might say, oh, well, the teacher didn't do this right or something. If it happens year after year, it's not the instruction.
If a child's sick for 2 weeks, he may have struggling on that area. You handle that with tutoring and you'll catch up. But if you've got a problem that's consistent all year long, year after year, you know it's something deeper than instruction or content. You got to find the real cause. And it's usually 80% of the time a cognitive skill.
Right. And motivation, you know, it could be motivation, but usually
that follows.
Usually your kindergartner and your first grader is motivated.
Right.
It's at some point throughout their schooling that they start struggling.
When you struggle
and then
enough,
the motivation goes.
Right.
But overwhelmingly, based on our research, based on others' research, over 80% of the time, 88% of the time for reading, it's due to poor cognitive skills.
Right. So if you're going to solve something, you got to target that.
Yes. And the good news is, as we all know now, we can train those skills.
Right.
So imagine, as a mom, and this has happened to me, your kid runs in screaming, and they show you their hands, and there's a sliver in the hand, right? So if you're treating the symptom rather the cause, you might give them Tylenol, right?
Right.
If you're treating the cause, you pull out the sliver.
Right. Which makes a lot more sense.
So this is an iceberg here, and you can see that on top, that's what we see, right? We see
all the symptoms.
Homework struggles. That's probably one of the #1 searches that people find us on, because when a child or children struggle with homework, it affects your every single night, every weekday night, and it's painful.
Right. Tension and reading also. But the real neat thing about this illustration here is that's what you see at the top, but the big problem, the real cause, is below it.
Yes, and we're going to get to some really interesting information that you probably have never seen before. That was surprising to me. And so this is our learning model. This is based on the Carol Horn-Cattell model of intelligence.
Right.
And let's explain this just a little bit. So, Dad, are you ready to try a task?
All right.
Okay, so I'm going to give him a task.
Remember, I'm getting very old, so be easy on me.
All right. So I'm going to have you spell the first president's of the United States last name. The last name of the first president of the United States.
First of all, I have to remember who it was.
Right.
I got that, though.
Okay, so I want you to do it as fast as you can. Are you ready?
All right. Ready?
Go.
W-A-S-H-I-N-G-T-O-N.
Very good. So he had an input. I told him to spell the president. He had to attend to the task. I asked him to do it as quickly as he could. He used his working memory, realized this is something he knew. went right to his knowledge bank, and was able to output it. Right?
Okay. I actually pictured the word.
You picture the word. Now, what if I asked you to spell the same president, the last name, but backwards?
Much tougher.
Are you ready?
Don't ask me to do that in front of everybody. All right.
Ready?
All right.
Go.
NOTGNIHSAW.
Good. That's great. And he's really strong in visual processing. But he was using sort of a technique on the bottom here. So again, I asked him to attend and pay attention to what I was asking, do it as quickly as he could. And it was a little bit more difficult for you.
Oh, much more difficult.
Yeah. So he used his working memory and thought part of this is new. Went up to the logic and reasoning area, decided how am I going to solve this?
Create a picture.
And so he used his visual processing. A lot of times that's what people use. Sometimes they'll think of the sounds in a word, pull the long-term memory, spelling out, and then go to the knowledge bank, right?
Right.
Now, what happens when someone has good processing skills, right?
It goes real easy,
right to the knowledge bank. Right. But if someone lacks certain skills, let's say auditory processing or long-term memory, you know, they start out, they attend, they want to do a good job, and then it just gets stuck.
I don't have the skill in that area.
Good. That's my animation, by the way. So
if they want to see a better one, they can go to our website and we have a professional one.
Yeah, we have an intro to LearningRx video that you can watch, and he likes it a lot better. But.
Right. Takes longer, and she wanted this shorter.
So in conclusion, without knowing the cause, you're just going to be guessing at the treatment. Unless you test all of these areas, right? You're going to be guessing at treatment, and a lot of people have done that before. They think, oh, I think they have a memory issue.
Lost, you know.
Yeah, or I think they have they didn't hear that in school, or maybe they have poor hearing.
A lot of money, a lot of time, it's right there.
Yeah.
Frustration, right.
And so we're going to share with you a way to help with that.
Good.
Good. So again, the number one step in helping your family is to understand the symptom is not the cause.
Really, really big. Understand that.
So what do we want to do? We want to determine the cause.
Right. Get to the real cause.
And this is why that's so important. So my son was diagnosed with ADHD, and this actually was presented, I think last year at the APA, American Psychological Association. This may be the largest group of clients with ADHD with this type of test information. And it's quite a finding, right? So when you think, when I think, why can't my child focus? I think, oh, they have attention issues. I'm going to go get them some type of attention training or focus training. And the problem is that you can see here, their sustained attention score. This again is 6,466 people that were previously diagnosed with ADHD. They come in 42nd percentile for their attention score, which is average. But their working memory, processing speed, and long-term memory,
all poor.
Much poor. So if you don't have this information, then you might be trying to treat the wrong area or not a full program.
Right.
Where if you test all these areas, now you're going to have a really good idea of where someone needs help.
It's like just washing the forks and forgetting about the knives and spoons and cups and everything else.
Well, or when you're driving down the road and you have that check engine light come on and you open the hood, I can guess all I want at what the problem is, but
we usually do try to guess.
You try to guess, and you also hope that the mechanic's going to guess right? But nowadays, what they can do is actually test.
There's a better way.
Then you're not spending all that time and energy, and there's nothing worse than fixing the wrong problem and still having the problem to deal with, right?
Yeah, especially spending extra money.
Yes, and I don't know if that's happened to people with cars, but it sure has happened to us before, where we were given the wrong guess. You fix the guess, and then you still have the problem.
Right.
So next, number 3 is we need to treat the cause rather than the symptom.
Right.
Right.
After you realize there is a cause, it's more than the symptom, and that you got to determine what that cause is, then you got to treat the cause. So that's important.
And just like, my son needed reading help, instead of focusing on why he needed reading help, why he wasn't learning like the other children in the class. They gave him knowledge help, right? Which is a compensatory measure. It's saying, you know, this isn't working, or accommodation, more time on tests, right? And it's just not really good for a weakness.
Right.
It's not good enough for my kids.
He's got the rest of his life ahead of him. Why are we accommodating problems? Let's correct the problems.
Yes, because at some point in their life, if they've received accommodation or compensation for their issue, now they're going to have to perform in the real world, and they're going to have to compete against other people.
Doing that is just putting a Band-Aid on it. It doesn't solve the problem.
So, you know, I know a lot of times people will go to tutoring, but just like with my kid, if there's cognitive issues and you give someone even more reading help that has a cognitive issue, it's not going to help.
Well, there'll be tutoring every single year.
Yes, and that's a good indicator. We'll get calls and someone will say, my child is having difficulty in math. Well, did they just have difficulty, or have they always struggled? Because if this is something that is a pattern, it's more than instruction.
Right, something deeper.
So this was also a very interesting finding. This is with clients who were previously diagnosed with dyslexia that came to us, over 2,400 clients, almost 2,300, 2,500. And, you know, when we started working with reading problems back in the 90s, there was a study that came out, $200 million was spent to find out why people have reading failure. And the big focus was auditory processing, or a skill within it called phonemic awareness.
Right.
And so they have implemented phonemic awareness all across the country. Unfortunately, you know, on the level of fourth graders that had reading difficulty, it just made it a little blip, right? And that's for several reasons. One is that if you don't make the skill automatic, then they're not going to use the skill.
Right. So just developing a skill and then letting the kid go isn't good enough, because he has a skill that he had before you introduced a new skill that he relies on. Until you break the old skill down and replace it with the proper underlying skill, he'll revert back to the old skill. And that's why so many kids that go through remedial programs in a lot of schools don't really so much improve, because they're not relying on the new skill. So when you develop a new skill, let's say the ability to blend and segment sounds, which is real critical, but you got to get that to an automatic level where it's his, where it's subconscious. And we have some special techniques to do that. And it really makes a difference, because now these kids don't need remedial reading the following year.
Right. Okay. A lot of times they go from the lowest reading group to the highest reading group. Right. And that's what happened with my own child. He went from the 18th percentile in reading. 2 months later on his school testing, after doing some training, he was at the 56th percentile. You don't get a jump like that in school. And then a year later, when they did his school testing, he was at the 86th percentile.
Okay.
Problem corrected.
Proof that it works.
And he enjoys reading. So he reads for pleasure now, which is what we want, right? But what's also very interesting about this data is, so the focus has been on phonemic awareness. Unfortunately, people that have reading difficulties, in our experience, come with a cluster of weak cognitive skills. Right. And this is true in a lot of cases that we see. Right. It's a cluster. It's not one thing that's causing them to have difficulties. And if you don't have you know, the correct idea of where to focus, then you cannot have a good training program, right? And
when you do see a cluster like that with multiple little skills, these kids often also have other problems. It's not just reading them. It's also comprehension and math and other things that are a problem, memory. So there's there's a term called learning disability. And so some kids have just a reading disability, but not a learning disability. But kids where you have a low cluster all across the bottom probably have both.
Yeah, and the good news is all these skills are trainable if you just know where you need to focus. And really important when you're treating the issue, when you find out what's wrong and you want training. Just like if I wanted to be a bodybuilder, which I'm not sure if I'll ever want to be in the future, but if I wanted to be a bodybuilder, there's different things I can do, right? I could read a book. I could maybe watch a video. I might be able to get some type of computer, Fitness Pal on my phone, where maybe it's telling me to do something. But when you need real training,
big changes,
when you need real remediation, especially with children who a lot of times need encouragement and they need the engagement, you need one-on-one training. And that's what we see in our studies when we look at different treatments that are out there. They might be digital or in group. There's just not very much result.
Right.
Yeah, you really need the personal trainer. So it's targeted to the areas, the individual areas that someone needs help with, and to help push them through areas of difficulty. And the great news is that we're going to go through some different options with you. We have the center, which is our best option. And so that's one-on-one training. You go to a center. For those of you that are not close to a center, we have started doing online video brain training with a human being, a brain trainer.
Live.
And so we have that option, or we even have a license option for parents.
Yeah, or we can actually train the parents. If you're nowhere near a center, you can come to us, we can train you, and you can do all the training. So it's a do-it-yourself option.
So just to talk a little bit more about what happens when we do training, we have an incredible story from Elle. Elle started brain training in 3rd grade, and then 5 years later, the news team came back and did a story on her, and then they did it 10 years after brain training.
Great story.
So we want to introduce you here to Elle, and this story just came out last year. And we don't always get the chance to, you don't get the chance to always see all the customers years later, but
tutoring might not solve the problem, but something called brain training might be what your kids need. Take a look.
Ready, go.
Blue, yellow, black.
It's repetitive, almost chant-like.
Blue, yellow.
And it's changing the way the brain functions.
It used to be believed that the skills we were kind of born with would just stay with us through life, and there wasn't really any way to affect them. But that's not true. You can actually change those underlying mental skills.
It's all happening at LearningRx, a center where kids don't do homework. Instead, they work on the root cause of their learning struggle.
The student that is struggling to remember multiplication tables, most likely their issue is weaker long-term memory. And that can also show up as reading comprehension issues, test-taking struggles. Tutoring definitely helps, obviously, but it's really more treating the symptom and kind of putting a Band-Aid on the problem.
We knew something needed to be done. She was really struggling. She couldn't read.
As a 3rd grader, Renee Remdy's daughter, Elle, was failing, and tutoring after school wasn't helping in the long term.
You can imagine what homework was like. It was a struggle. It was a battle. Elle was always fighting us. She never wanted to do it because it was so difficult for her. She was missing core classes like science and social studies, and nothing was helping. She just kept falling farther and farther behind.
When you think about training, you think about going to the gym, right? And if you're working with a personal trainer, that trainer is really encouraging, is going to push you, and is like, let's go, let's go. That's a lot of what's happening here is we're training these underlying mental skills. We're actually doing very intense mental exercises in a one-on-one setting that are targeting each individual child's cognitive or mental weaknesses.
And it's hard not to notice how loud it is in here. It's for good reason. Number 1, classrooms are loud, and number 2, it's all about concentration.
The trainers really push you really hard, and they try to distract you and try to literally just train your brain and make you focus and work really hard.
That training paid off. Elle gained 3 grade levels in just 1 year.
We don't have to struggle with her homework anymore. She's completely doing everything on her own. Her teachers love her. She's getting straight A's. I think she had 1 B this quarter.
I was actually enjoying a book that I read, and it was like pretty much like watching a movie because I was excited and I just wanted to finish it. But before that, I didn't want to pick up any books. So I saw the results. 7.
That's right, pick them up.
Okay.
Nice, there you go.
We first met Elle Remdy as a young teen when she had completed the LearningRx program. Now she's making big plans for her future, and that's because that brain training is long-lasting. Take a look. 17-year-old Elle Remdy is a senior in high school, already taking college courses. But 5 years ago, we met her as a tween.
I just didn't understand it at all. I would just look at it and not get it.
Elle could not read, and her mom, Renee, heard it from teachers time and time again.
They said I was expecting too much of her, and with her learning disability, it was an unreasonable expectation for her to read.
I have a really good memory, so when they would coach me through a sentence, I would just memorize what they said and be like, oh yeah, this, and I would just say it back, and I would memorize a complete book and just read it.
She had a tutor, and teachers read to her instead of Elle reading to them. But her mom found LearningRx, and in 3rd grade, Elle began the intensive program.
It's building new connections in the brain that weren't there before.
For 6 months, 6 days a week, Elle's brain was trained, and then a turning point.
And it was that 4th grade year that she made the most astounding progress and essentially gained 4 years of reading skills in 1 year.
Elle will now be a freshman at St. Olaf College in the fall. She wants to major in theater and music.
I want to be an actress, potentially on Broadway or something like that.
She knows without LearningRx, her life would be very different.
I would have struggled so much in school that it would have been a lot harder. I mean, theater, you're reading lines. If I couldn't read, I mean, how would I do what I'm doing?
I knew the school, unfortunately, just didn't have the tools to help her. And if I hadn't found LearningRx, I don't know that Elle would be able to do what she's doing today. I don't think she would have been able to go to college.
Really?
I'm certain she wouldn't have been able to.
But now Renee and Elle both know the sky is the limit.
She excels in just about everything she does. It may not be her passion, but there isn't anything that my daughter can't do.
I love that story so much. It gives me chills every time I listen to it. She's so beautiful, so smart, so full of life. And you know how important it is for your kids to have that, you know, and not lose that. So I want to introduce you to Terry Miller. She is a cognitive researcher here at the Gibson Institute of Cognitive Research. And she started with us how long ago?
3 years.
3 years. And so one of the neat things that has happened in the last year is Terry's research has been published in 3 peer-reviewed science journals.
Yes.
And so, you know, we've showed you a lot of the cognitive test scores, which are impressive. You see the bar go up, and that's all very impressive. Terry has an interesting part of research. She focuses on the qualitative data,
right?
The everyday real life change, because when it comes to impacting my family, you know, my son had a really impressive IQ change. He went from, he actually started at 103 and ended at 132. So, I mean, that's super impressive. But what impressed me was when he could do his homework by himself.
Right.
When he started caring about grades. When he started not being as impulsive with his siblings and, you know, getting into fights, when he chose better friends. That's what I wanted, right? So, and so that's what you study. Tell me a little bit more about that.
So I have the privilege and the joy of working with Gibson Institute of Cognitive Research with Dr. Amy Moore. And Amy's the one that really does all the science-y numbers, takes care of all that. And I get to do the qualitative research like you're talking about. And that is the quality of life information. So instead of simply the test scores, which again, that's important, I'm looking at how much more confidence. We are evaluating people's comments, students' comments from before training to after training. And we actually have research published that has been really encouraging, showing that there are incredible, we call them transfer effects, from that cognitive training to quality of life. And as a mom, just like you said, that's what I'm passionate about.
Right. And what are some of the biggest quality improvements that people talk about?
Consistently, we see confidence is one of the big ones. And in our younger kids especially, we see new independence, new responsibility, self-control. And then in the aging population, it's different. We see them respond with things like, my memory is better, my outlook is better. Because I think as people are aging and starting to have memory problems, it becomes very depressing. And so we see really improved outlook, improved mood, new educational opportunities, just like with Elle.
Yes, and actually with my own son, who actually never had a confidence issue, except when it came to schoolwork, right? So he had his sister who could do anything. You know, there's a reason why he was avoiding his schoolwork. And then once he was like, wow, I can do this. I have good memory. I can do things quickly. I can focus. All of a sudden, his confidence with his schoolwork changed, which changed his future dreams, right? From let me get out of high school and do something to I can go to college. You know, I can do whatever I want to do. Like he realizes now that he has those skills. And when you have those skills, then you're more confident to try new things because you're probably going to succeed. You know, where before you were probably going to fail. So,
well, it's that Band-Aid analogy again. Are we going to just put a Band-Aid on a struggle, or are we going to get to the root issue? And that's really what makes the difference. That's why we're seeing these quality of life improvements and changes, because we're understanding the root issue.
Yes. So let me introduce you to one of the reasons why this is so important to Terry. This is Terry's family. Talk a little bit about your family.
Yes, my husband Kevin and I, we have 9 kids. There's only 5 living at home right now though, so it's not as crazy as you would imagine. My oldest son is really my inspiration for becoming a part of this research, this industry. So I'm not sure if you can see the picture, but yeah, it's just a big family picture, Christmas time, lots of us in there. But anyway, my son Caleb, he had lots of medical problems. I'm not going to bore you with all the details, but lots of different diagnoses. He's had several brain surgeries. He is an absolute miracle, but he was really, really struggling with a lot of basic things, just taking care of himself, financial issues, driving was really challenging. He had had a couple of car wrecks. His processing speed, I think, was just really slow, some visual and auditory processing struggles. He was having a hard time with holding a job, even just some basic jobs, and things were really hard for him, but we knew he could do better. We knew there was more in there if we could begin to understand the core problems. And so Caleb took the Gibson test. We helped him understand those core issues, and he went through training and it changed his life.
Good. And we have a small testimonial. It's just a couple minutes from Caleb. So let's go ahead and watch his story. I think it's so inspiring.
Me too.
Yeah.
Before LearningRx, as a kid, I really struggled socially and academically. I spent most of my childhood with no friends. The summer of 2017, I was coming back from college and was in a car wreck. My response time and reflexes back then were not as good as they should be. I had been really in and out of jobs and just couldn't hold a job, and my self-esteem was horrible. So my goal when I started brain training, I was really excited. I was looking forward to just getting quicker responses. I made such awesome progress throughout, especially towards the end. Better self-esteem and knew what I was doing better and could do things better, remember better, and could perform in the job field better than I was able to before. I'd never heard of it before I came to it, but LearningRx is an awesome company for brain training or neurological growth or expansion. So since brain training, I definitely think the results and everything I know now and know about myself is going to allow me just to go so much further than I would have without it. It works. It was one of those things where I kind of just blew myself away, like, wow, it works if I just actually try. it's made a huge difference in my life, so I don't see why it wouldn't in anyone else's.
That is such a great story.
Yes.
You must be so proud of him.
I am. I actually spoke with him on the phone last night for about an hour and a half, and it's so great just chatting with him and how his life has changed. He had been living at home, and like I said, and he said too, struggling with work and other things. And actually towards the end of the training, he got an incredible job opportunity, started, working a great job, moved out of the house, had his own place with a roommate, and just started thriving.
That's awesome. So why is your child struggling, or what is your child struggling with? Just like us, reading, learning, memorizing, attention, homework, processing, something is causing those struggles. So I'm going to give you the opportunity to go ahead and start writing in questions. And at the end, we'll have a Q&A time to go over those. But what do we need to do? What are we going to, how are we going to help find out? We need to determine the cause, right?
Absolutely.
We need to do step number 2 before we can come to these fantastic stories.
Yes.
And so to do that, we want to introduce you to the Gibson Test of Cognitive Skills. And we would talk about it, but the video, which is only a couple minutes, really explains the Gibson test and the report, and we have some pictures for you to show you what you get with the Gibson test. So let me start this for you, and we'll be back in just a couple minutes here. The Gibson Test of Cognitive Skills is a comprehensive test designed to provide reliable information to educators, clinicians, and families about the cognitive performance of their students and clients. The Gibson Test is one of the most comprehensive multilingual learning skills assessment tools in the world, measuring the 7 core cognitive skills that are the foundation for thinking and learning. These 7 cognitive skills are grounded in the Cattell-Horn-Carroll theory of intelligence, which is the most widely accepted theory of cognition and serves as the foundation for most of the major intelligence tests. The Gibson test measures core skills needed for everyday learning and processing, including long-term memory, which is the ability to store and retrieve information, working memory, the ability to store information while performing a different mental activity, visual processing, the ability to analyze, store, and recall visual information, auditory processing, an important skill for language learning, reading and spelling, processing speed, the ability to perform cognitive tasks quickly, and logic and reasoning, the ability to form concepts and solve problems. The Gibson test also provides a learning skills survey and assesses a skill called English word attack, which is the skill the brain uses to identify sound codes used in the English language. Available in over 15 languages, the Gibson test can be completed in less than an hour on a computer or tablet, and test results can be accessed immediately. Clients can also choose to be tested by a trained professional, a process that includes a one-on-one consultation to review the results. In all cases, clients receive a comprehensive report that details the individual's cognitive strengths and their weaknesses. The report gives age equivalent scores for clients ages 5 to 16, and for all ages, the report includes percentile rank, standard scores, as well as a full explanation for each skill tested.
Whether you are a parent interested in understanding your child's learning skills, an adult curious about your own skills, or an educator or clinician seeking help for a student or client, the Gibson Test of Cognitive Skills will give you invaluable information about brain skill performance and guide you to the next best step.
That's a great video. So probably better than we could say ourselves, although you might have seen I was on the video.
Yeah.
That was my voice. So let's talk a little bit about testing.
Well, I do quite a bit of neuropsych testing for Gibson Research, and we do a variety of tests, IQ tests, other executive function tests, and my absolute favorite working with our research participants is the Gibson Test of Cognitive Skills, because the report, the information that comes out of there is just so easy to understand. Really, really helps you visualize. We can give that report right away to the participant or the student, and it really helps you visualize and see clearly what are those underlying problems or strengths. And it's easy to understand, it's easy to take. In the video you just saw, there were some images of the report, if you saw that. And we may be able to show you some of those later.
There we go, yay. And this is great. This is the first time we have ever offered this deal.
An amazing deal.
Yes, and cognitive testing to uncover the cause. If you have gone to some professionals to do this type of testing, it costs a lot of money.
It does.
$600, $1,600 or more,
right,
for this type of testing.
For my son Caleb, he's gone through a complete battery of neuropsych testing several times, and did recently before we ended up pursuing the Gibson test and the training with LearningRx. And I mean, we didn't pay all of it, of course, that's what insurance is for, but it was thousands of dollars. And it was worth it. If it had been $10,000, if it had been $50,000, how do you put a price on changing his life?
Yes, well, today you'll pay only $147 for the test.
And that's amazing.
It is, and I did have testing done on all my kids. So when my daughter had her concussions, one of the great things that helped me just through what she was dealing with was the fact that I had this baseline testing. And so I knew that if it did impact her cognitive skills, I would be able to see that, because I had baseline testing from years before. So, after concussion and after you try to come back from that, did it affect your cognitive skills? A lot of times it doesn't, and in some cases it does. So having that testing for her, I took this test my birthday week, just to do a brain health check, because as I age, you start going, I can't see that quite as clearly. My memory, I feel like my memory's slipping a little bit. And so it's a really nice way to just, have this check. But for us today, this test is going to offer invaluable information and help you determine the cause as to why your child or family member is struggling, because the test can be used for anyone from 5 to 85, I think, or
85,
older.
95, yeah.
Older. And so this test is comprehensive. It's going to test all those areas, just like the video showed. And today, this is for a limited time, we are offering a 30-day money-back guarantee if you're not satisfied with the test result.
That's so good.
So what would happen is you go to the site that we'll tell you in just a minute, and you'll do this online test and take it at home. And it's going to come with a comprehensive report with charts.
It is easy to administer, punch a few buttons, make sure you've got some good focus time for your kiddo or for yourself to take it. And I'm just going to insert, because I love that you brought this up, that you took it yourself just as a checkup, because that's such an important thing. We are currently doing quite a bit of research with the aging population, with early onset dementia, mild cognitive impairment. And that's one of those things that at 50, at 60, you start to kind of have memory problems. And if you can access something like this to say, hey, I'm doing well in these areas, but not so well in this one area, then you can begin to see what you can work on. And then, take this kind of test every 5 years. Really, really a great resource.
Yeah, I'm taking it every year now because I'm past 40. So
there you go.
I don't want to ever have a gap in my learning. I want to know as soon as I start to decline, so I can do something.
Absolutely.
But, a lot of times people will take the test and they'll say, oh, great, I have this information. Now what?
Now what?
Right? You've determined the cause. Now what? So to help with this offer and to help you really get the most from taking the test and real answers, we are offering as well with the test result an in-person consultation if you are near LearningRx Center. So they'll go over the test results with you. There's no extra charge for this. This this alone is worth about $300. Or if you are not near a center, then we will do an online video consultation, and you will work with a brain training expert. So someone who's actually worked with students and understands these test results and how they relate to the type of training that we do.
That's so helpful. Whether you've got kiddos to juggle like I do, getting to an appointment is just sometimes really challenging. Or if you're working with an aging parent and it's difficult to get to that location, you can have them take this assessment, and then you can have that online conversation to go over the results to make sure that you really do understand everything on that report.
Yep, cognitive testing has reached the modern age,
Yay.
right? Now, like I said, so when we go through the consultation, we'll go through the test results, and then we have different ways to help. So if you're near a center, you'll be able to go right to that center. Your child will have a one-on-one trainer. My kids loved their trainer so much. They each had a special relationship, and it's really exciting to have someone come out and say, hey, you know, Kip did this today, and Finn didn't complain once. He didn't complain once, you know. Right. And your daughter passed 20 levels. She's never done that before. So it's a real encouragement to have someone else there helping with, you know, with things that you're real concerned about, and giving that one-on-one attention. Now, if you do not have a center near you, in the last year or so, we have been doing some online video brain training where you still have that human one-on-one brain trainer, but we can work with you anywhere across the country if you're not able to go to a physical location. We also have a parent license if you're not near a center. So you're able to work with, especially if, you know, maybe your child is lower functioning, and so you want to work with them for a very long time, or may need to work with them over, you know, 200 hours or whatever it is, then you'll have that option of doing it yourself.
I just was thinking that's a great option for parents who homeschool. And again, for adults taking care of their aging parents. If you want to help out your parents as they're getting older and maybe having memory struggles, that's a great option.
Yes, and remember, our goal really is to help make learning and performing easier, faster, and better.
Absolutely.
Not only as parents, but as professionals that want to help people live better lives. Right. And so, you know, for many, many years, this process that we're sharing with you has helped transform learning struggles, just like in our own families, but across the world. We actually celebrated 100,000 brains trained within the last 2 years. And the new science and training, we can even work with severe learning struggles. So in the results report that we shared earlier, it talks about people that are very, very low functioning and what type of results we get. So we like to be transparent and share all of our results with you. Remember that the testing that we're offering today is 1/10 the average fee. And what you do is you would start this at home. So you would go ahead and purchase the test. It's at LearningRxTest.com, LearningRxTest.com. Go ahead, purchase the test, and then you'll schedule your consultation, and that will just depend upon if you're close to a center, you'll schedule it with that center, or if you're not close to a center, then you'll schedule it with this online consultation. You'd want to take the test 2 to 3 days before the consultation, and then make sure you sit down with your child right next to them, and so it will have like a practice test that you do with them. You want to do the test when they're most sharp. And that's different for my kids. One child I have is a morning child, right? So a lot of times she wakes us up. She's ready to go at maybe 6 in the morning.
Right.
Which I know I'm gonna miss at some point. And then I have other kids who they're really on at 10 o'clock. And so a lot of our parents will talk about like 10 or 11 o'clock would be the best time.
Right.
Remember, there's no risk, money back guarantee. If you purchase this test. And so you want to start today. You want to go to LearningRxTest.com, and there's no risk. So what we want to do is go ahead and answer some questions we have. And I have a couple questions in front of me that we can help with. And this just gives you an idea of what that report is going to show you once you take the test. So you have this great baseline testing. Just right there for you.
I love the little picture that's on the far right. I hope we're looking all
the radar
the
graph.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love that graph. It's not very scientific, but it is just such a wonderful visual, because what I imagine is none of us are going to be the full shape of that graph. That would be a person who has perfect intelligence in every area. But what's really neat to see is we would like to imagine that we would have the shape, the same shape, but maybe to lesser degrees. And even the example here, you can see that, hey, there are some areas that are very high functioning and some that really need work. So it's a great piece of that assessment. And I did want to mention as well, because we were really focusing on, we were saying for children, that this test was normed and validated on all ages. And so this is geared towards middle age, high schoolers, college age, older adults. This is normed and validated on all ages. So
yes.
You can trust that it's of high quality.
And it's the only online cognitive test that also includes auditory processing. Over 60% of our clients have struggles with reading. So that's an extremely important skill to test. And, if you take some other memory tests, it's not going to show that skill.
Right.
You need to test that skill. So our online Gibson test has the largest normative database for ages 5 to seniors. So it's a great test.
It is.
So I do have some questions here. Can 2 people take the test or buy 1 test for each? So you buy 1 test for each. This is a very special deal. And then you get a consultation for both. But it's only $147.
And I can just explain that real quickly. It's an online assessment. And so you can't purchase that online assessment and have 2 people take it, because you're literally putting in the answers and using up that assessment as you're going through it. So it is completely individualized. All those responses then go into the report.
Right. And so if your child is 10, then that child is going to be normed against 10-year-olds.
Yes.
So once you put in the age, everything that comes out with the test is specific to that child. It also comes with a learning skills rating scale survey, where she loves observational real life change. So it looks at observational, like what you see, so that you can compare that to the test result. And that really gives you some very clear answers. Oh, now I understand why, they always leave the table after 5 minutes or whatever.
My kid never listens to me. Why doesn't he listen? And then you find out he really struggles with auditory processing.
Yes.
Light bulb. We can work on this.
And I don't think I mentioned this before, but when you have an auditory processing issue, it does affect your ability to listen to lectures, right? It affects your ability to read out loud. It affects your ability to learn sound-based languages. So if someone is struggling with a foreign language, it's probably connected to an auditory processing problem. Another way, sometimes spelling. So maybe your child is a reader and you're not even thinking that that's an issue, but every time they try to spell, they spell it incorrectly, and that's probably connected to an auditory processing problem. The good news is, whether it's a memory issue, processing speed issue, attention issue, you're going to get some answers that will be very, very helpful in determining your next steps for only $147.
Yes.
So someone asked, my son has a low IQ. I know he has executive function problems. Can his brain retrain? Absolutely.
Yes.
So executive function is made up of several of these skills that we see here. So logic and reasoning, working memory, processing speed. So even though we don't have an executive function score, these core cognitive skills are the skills that would be involved with executive function. So if we can improve processing speed, long-term memory, working memory, logic and reasoning, then you'll see a change in their executive function.
I would say that's executive function kind of encompasses how all those things fit together.
Yes.
It's a great term for handling life. And when we can improve underlying cognitive skills, we can just handle life better.
Yes. Am I obligated to do a program if I do an assessment? No. The value of the assessment, for $147, you're going to have this cognitive test result that you would normally pay hundreds, if not thousands of dollars for. And, on the rare chance it's not even a cognitive issue, you now have that information. So it just allows you to make the right decision and not waste your money on areas where they don't need help.
Right.
But it's a consultation. So our goal is to look over test results, sort of explain what's going on, and then give you some answers as to how to help your child. But whether or not you choose to do that, that's up to you.
Your child or your parents. Again, I just keep coming back to that because I think it's just such an exciting new field that we're learning. Research is showing us, science is showing us that we can change the brain even when we're 60, 70, 80 years old, when we're starting to feel that decline. If you see your parents having that decline, there are things that can be done. Just like the answer to that question, executive function, yes, we can help that. There are things that can be done to improve that. And this assessment could be a great gift. You never know what to get your parents, right? This could be a really great gift for your aging parents to say, hey, you're going to do this assessment. You're going to get an amazing report. We're going to get personalized information for you. And then if you decide to do something about it, great. If not, you're armed with knowledge.
Yes. And it's interesting because I bought like the gene test,
yes,
the DNA test, so you can find out your origin. I think that was maybe like $140 or so, and that's not based on the same science as this test, right? It doesn't come out the same all the time. But what a great gift! You're right. And so, I mean, they have to take the test.
Hey, Mother's Day, Father's Day, it's coming up.
Then have a consult. So maybe even a spouse.
Ooh.
What results should I expect from brain training? Good question. It all depends. I mean, it depends upon where you start. So we know what we average. So just general population, we average about a 15 to 20 percentile gain across the board in deficient skills, which means if someone started at the 25th percentile, then our average gain would be about, they'd be at the 45th percentile after 90 hours. So they go from below average to average. So that's it. So like I said, it just depends upon how someone tests, where you want to focus, what type of result you want to see. And we haven't really hit ceilings on like how far we could take someone. I know my son tested in 2 areas on the 99th percentile, which is the highest you can get. And he's super proud about that. But it just depends upon what you want. So, I had a son who needed, 2 courses of training. And then I had one who, after 6 months, he was good. And he reads for pleasure. If only I could get him to clean his room. We do not guarantee that with this.
Yeah, we can't give you that promise. So we just got another question. Is the assessment relevant for someone who doesn't necessarily have an acute problem? I loved what Tanya said earlier about she wants to just take this assessment every year as kind of a baseline measure. And I think that's a really, really good point. For kids, college students, adults, aging population, really at any age, it's great to begin to see, how am I functioning? You don't have to have an acute problem to have small deficiencies. And, maybe I'm a pessimist, but I think we all have deficiencies in different areas. We all have giftedness and we all have struggles. And so if you can begin to understand where those struggles are, even if they're minor, then you can improve. And again, back to auditory processing, maybe your spouse says, you don't listen to me, or maybe you struggle to plug into conversations when you're in a group. And if you can begin to understand that's your struggle, then you can begin to work on it, even if it's not an acute problem.
So for me, the reason that I took the test and I saw my skills slipping is I actually was a trainer for many, many years. And even as a trainer, when you're working with these kids, the great benefit is your skills get very strong. So when you're used to having very superior skills, and now I have some high average, so I have dropped a little bit, I think. It affects you when you are a high performer, and then all of a sudden you start losing some of that skill. You don't want to give that up.
Right.
So it's really nice to have that baseline testing. hopefully this would never happen, but let's say I was in an accident or something.
I was about to say, here's another example.
And I wanted to see if that affected my skills. Now I have that testing.
Right.
So thank you so much for joining us. You go to LearningRxTest.com to order your test, and we look forward to consulting with you over these test results. And feel free to share this. This is recorded, so feel free to share with friends or family. And thank you so much for joining us. So
thank you.
Y'all take care.